Do I need to do anything here to activate?
Hi guys, welcome to the EGP Learning Podcast as part of the HTN Digital Week, where we're going to talk about social media guidance for clinicians. I'm Gandhi.
And I'm Andy. Hello.
Hope you guys are enjoying watching us, and we're going to go through a variety of different things in terms of how to use social media as a clinician, some of the things you need to be aware of, how that can impact in terms of the work that you're doing, and also covering the various different platforms that you may have heard about, just basically so that we can talk about it. So we're going to switch over to the slides, and then we'll be coming back and forth. That's all right?
That sounds great by me.
Cool. Okay.
So yeah, and I suppose just before we stop, if you're watching us on YouTube Live, which you probably are, on the right-hand side, there's a comment section. Please feel free to ask questions, make comments. I'm here monitoring that feed, and I'll feed back into Gandhi and into the room so we can discuss any points that you raise. So great.
I'm more than happy to tackle any questions you guys have live. Obviously, if you have any questions afterwards, so if you're watching this not live, feel free to contact either of us. And as you can see in a second, there we go. So hopefully now you can see our slides. So you can contact me, linktree / Dr. Gandalf or Andy Foster on Twitter.
Absolutely.
Cool. So guys, let's get started, shall we? So this session, these are the 5 things we're going to cover. So we're going to look at working knowledge of the key social media platforms. And so main ones we're focusing on are Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, WhatsApp, and briefly we'll cover some of the other ones as well. How to use these platforms, particularly for education and continuous professional development, so CPD. Understanding the implications for these, for working as a GP, because it is something you need to be aware of when you're using social media. The do and do not rules, hard and fast kind of things. And just some of our little hints and tips that we've come across to try and make it a little bit more manageable for you.
Absolutely. And as I said before, if you want to go a little bit deeper into the platforms or increase the difficulty setting a little bit in terms of what we're talking about, happy to do that. Equally, if you want us to sort of row back and go more bigger picture, I think we're happy to do that as well. Cool.
So shall we get into it, guys? Then so I'm afraid there's going to be a little bit back and forth about this because we're trying to figure out how to do it effectively for you. And I'm using Andy's mouse, which I'm not used to using. There we go. So the first thing we thought would be worth defining is what social media actually is. So as you can see, it's written up there and stuff. But effectively, we wanted to talk about the various different networks that you may know about. So hopefully some of our people online may want to comment, Andy.
They made it. However, as with the previous session, I think they're being a little bit quiet. I can certainly comment. So
go for it.
What's the question? What definition of social media?
Well, no. So what social media platforms are you aware of, Andy?
Oh gosh, Facebook, Twitter. WhatsApp, is that social media?
Yes.
It is. Okay, that's interesting.
So by that definition, a website or application that enables users to create and share contact to participate in social networking. So yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I guess, it's a smaller network, but it's a network. LinkedIn is quite a popular one. And then things like Instagram, Snapchat. For the kids, maybe like Snapchat, although I'm not sure their stocks are doing too well at the moment, but story for another day. Pinterest, there must be all sorts, and there's quite a lot of niche ones, isn't there, for different communities, and there's a few for doctors as well.
And actually one of the largest social networking sites is WeChat, which actually in the UK we don't really use a great deal. Massive in China though, huge over there. So each country has its own kind of social network that it tends to predominantly look at. Obviously the big hitters are, like you mentioned, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and YouTube, probably the big ones. And they're effectively the ones that we were going to cover for you guys. So if we go back to our slides. So I like showing this to almost everyone when I talk about social media because it's a great way of trying to metaphor out what social media is and how it works for those people that may not be as good at figuring it out. It doesn't have some of the newer platforms on there and stuff, but that's okay. These things come and go. But yeah, I always find it funny. And a shout out to John Atkinson who drew this. I always get a lot of enjoyment looking at this image.
That's fun. I think Imgur is the only one that I am not familiar with. What's Imgur? Do you know?
So Imgur's an image one, similar to Instagram. More focused around kind of if I remember, it's things like pets and that kind of stuff. If I remember right, it's purely images and doesn't have the same sharing that Instagram I think has effectively. I think it's actually been taken over if I remember rightly. Apologies if I got this wrong, guys. But yeah, maybe someone out there could tell us if I'm right or wrong effectively how that works.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice picture though. Love that.
Cool. So next up. So this is a question I like to ask people when we talk about using various different technologies and stuff. So how confident do you feel using social media as a clinician? So if people listening out there can have a think about this and see what where they would want to put themselves. Would you rank yourself as a technophile, so really confident, tech happy, but you're confident, but possibly the things you would like to do better? Tech curious, so not really quite sure, but you're keen to learn. Tech shy, so not confident at all at using social media as a clinician, or what I like to term as a Luddite. So technology scares the pants off you effectively, and maybe what I'm hoping by watching this session is that those kind of people will have an appreciation for what technology and social media can do for you and things.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know where our viewers sit, and do feel free to comment. There are people watching, by the way, but do feel free to comment. I guess we might have technophiles who want to get even better, who are into this kind of stuff, or we might have people who are not too confident and want to improve. So I guess we cater for all of those. Where are you, Gandhi?
So when it comes to social media, I probably put myself as a technophile. I think I'm quite happy and confident in using it and understand a lot of the platforms and stuff. I'm by no means the uber socialite kind of thing, and I definitely don't have the millions of followers that someone like Ariana Grande or Katy Perry would have,
or our own Dr. Irfan Malik from Nottingham. Shout out to you. Share, retweet us, and then maybe we'll get some more hits. I'm somewhere between, I think, tech happy, technophile. I think I'm very comfortable with the platforms, but I sometimes go through periods of thinking, I'm so busy. What's the point? What can I get from this? But I guess we're going to go in that direction with this talk as well.
Cool. So let's go back to the slides, guys. There we go. So these are the various different networks that we wanted to look at. So Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and WhatsApp. So this platforms in a little bit more depth. However, there are other ones that you may want to consider. So particularly in terms of medical perspective, doctors.net, which is probably the first medical social media platform in the UK. Effectively, it was just forums originally, and people used to discuss things.
Is it still used?
Yeah, so it still exists. I think it lost a bit of momentum in terms of functionality because all these other kind of platforms have come up, and it kind of got a bit of a reputation. So its nickname was the Crop Pit. Okay. You kind of had to be a little brave sometimes wanting to go across it, kind of thing. But still functioning, lots of good educational stuff that exists around it and things, and owned by 3M, the company.
Actually, I was going to ask what happened, because I was thinking, I bet they got off to a flying start and then they sold it, and then it kind of languished a little bit and didn't get developed. So that answers my question. Yeah. So
but Doctor.net is still a really good platform, and I know there's lots of people that still avidly use it. So definitely worth having a look at and considering, and particularly still there. Another one I wanted to mention was MedShare. So this is an app that effectively tries to create a community to share medical cases effectively. It's an American company, if I remember rightly, although don't quote me on that. And it is app-based, so it's a lot harder to use through the website than it is through an app. And lots of different communities that developed on there. So there's one for general practice, one for cardiology. It is cross-speciality based and things. Probably more used internationally than it is in the UK at the moment, but it is growing and relatively new product. It does look quite good as a system. I think it's quite effective. It tends to, because of the international aspect, some of it isn't, because it doesn't have the huge uptake of UK-based clinicians, may not be as fully developed as some of the other ones we're going to talk about in terms of content, but as an actual functional tool, really good.
Cool.
Digitalis. Andy, you know a bit about Digitalis.
Yeah, we covered it on the Pod Blast a few months ago, probably. Actually, really useful app. So Digitalis. So the main function that people might be interested in is that it links with Clarity Appraisal Toolkit and possibly other toolkits coming down the line, maybe in the future. And it allows you to take photos of certificates, documents, make CPD entries there and then with your phone when things are happening, which is really useful, and it will sync with your Clarity appraisal toolkit online, which is really useful. But they also go a little bit further, and it's very clever. They try and add a social media element to CPD, so you can share what you're learning with other GPs who are using the app and other health professionals. I think it's a good way actually to sort of see what other people are doing and to sort of motivate yourself. Some people are motivated by sharing on social media, and also finding information that way. What have other people done that's useful for them? Should I do that too? So it's very impressive, actually.
And that's the reason why I stuck it on this list. So although as a CPD capture app, it's really good. One of the other things it does have is its communities section. So you're trying to create communities of people, whatever that may be. So you can actually create your own practice community if you wanted to, your own PCN community, your own regional one, or just a group of friends, you know. Ideal for locums if you wanted to create your own study group and that kind of stuff. So really effective, really sensible kind of app, and you know, definitely worthwhile considering. I'm going to jump through these ones quickly. So Google, WordPress, Slack, and Reddit. So these are all various different platforms that allow you to create discussion forums or all that kind of stuff. WordPress, although it's predominantly a website builder, does have a lot of social sharing capacities within it. And Slack is probably the one to watch, I would probably say. So interestingly, NHS Digital use this. So in terms of practices potentially using this as a communication tool, I think it's something that we're going to start to see as time moves forward and things, particularly with federated working. Really good potential option.
Interesting. What's the ownership of Slack? Are they? Did someone buy them, or?
I honestly can't remember.
I'm not sure. I thought you might
there
know.
was some musings about them being taken over a while back, and they have just recently changed their icon, which caused a huge furore.
I saw something about this. What have they changed it to? Is it like a flowery
thing? Before it was
hang on.
4 cross lines in it, like a hash kind of thing, and now it's about 8 and more like a star. And
I think I've thought what it looks like now. Okay.
Sorry guys, we don't have a picture to show you, but feel free to search it up. Reddit is the original kind of discussion forum kind of stuff. It's probably the international version of doctors.net, if I'm being honest. So really useful platform to get information from, but you need to be cautious because some of the Reddit users will bite you if you're not careful.
There are some dark places on Reddit as well.
Definitely.
There are some weird, it's not just medical. I mean, there are some really strange forums. So use with care and interest, I would say.
Definitely. And then image-wise, I wanted to just mention these ones briefly. So figure 1 is the best way I can describe it is actually, I probably should have done these the other way around. It's the Instagram of medicine, effectively. So if you've got an image you want to share, you want to get advice, you want to show cases and stuff, figure 1 is something to have a look at. Be cautious, I guess, a little bit. Patient identifiable information is something you need to be aware of, and we'll talk about it in a second, a little bit later on, sorry. But definitely a useful kind of visual learning tool, I think. Instagram is the visual learning platform, visual sharing platform. It's owned by Facebook, do remember that. Massive in terms of development, and it's the platform that's growing probably the quickest outside of LinkedIn at this moment in time. Pinterest, really good for sharing lists in particular. Much higher uptake for female users. That's probably because of the fact that, various different reasons. I'm not going to say anything that's going to get me into trouble, actually.
No, why not? Why more females?
Right.
Why?
Well, if you compare, for example,
it's a fact. So
my wife makes more lists than I do.
Okay.
And it's a list sharing platform effectively. So that's why it works really well. Majority of the users are female. Still a really good platform, and a lot of people use it. And Snapchat, Andy mentioned, visual sharing. The key use of Snapchat was the fact that the messages and things you would send would time out. So kind of like for Mission Impossible, watch it and then get rid of it before it blows up kind of thing, because it disappears. Medically, I'd struggle to see how you could use it effectively.
I was thinking about this. I've been sat here looking at these, and I think where I've heard Snapchat used is where a medical service might want to target a particular demographic of people.
Okay.
So not really for use as individual medics, but I think there was, I'm probably wrong, but something around sexual health in teenagers. Maybe. And they thought, how do we reach these people? And they did it using the Snapchat platform, I think. And if they hadn't, maybe they should, so they have different demographics. So maybe women's health, controversially, I don't know. Pinterest, teenagers, young people, Snapchat, grandparents, Facebook these days, who knows? But maybe for targeting, it's useful to use different things.
So that's our list, guys, and we're just going to crack on to the next part, if that's okay. So But before we do, hi guys, don't forget this is a live session that we're recording out for you guys, and it's on social media guidance for clinicians as part of HTN Digital Week. If you wanted to check out some of our other sessions, so we've already done the 5 GP apps one, where me and Andy talked about our top 5 apps and the ones that you may find effective and useful to use. And coming up after this session, we've got our session on how to use technology to enhance your CPD. So do feel free to check those out. The links are there. You just need to type them into your browser and it'll take you straight through to them. If you're watching this after we've gone live, these sessions are still live, so you can look back at them and stuff and engage. And at the end of it, you'll see how to collect your CPD certificate if you're not watching this live through HTN.
Got it.
Cool. Facebook. Okay, so hands down, Facebook is probably the largest social media platform at this moment in time. May not be the rapidest growing one, but that's probably because it's already got several billion users already.
It's already got everyone.
Yeah, effectively. And it's definitely the most well-known one and stuff. So basically what we wanted to talk about was the various different ways that it can be used and things. So just to go kind of short kind of term, it's what we call walled garden. Have you heard that term before, Andy?
Yeah, so it tries to keep you there, doesn't it? Facebook tries to get your attention and then never let you leave.
So Facebook likes everything to be on Facebook. The moment you try to leave Facebook, doesn't like it and it wants to try and pull you back in. So, you know, to look at the content on Facebook, you have to be signed into Facebook. You can't really see a lot of this content outside. They have changed that slightly. So some things like the pages and that kind of stuff you can scan without being logged in, but there's a limit to what you can actually see and stuff. But definitely things like the groups, your news feeds, all that kind of stuff, they are effectively, you have to log in. After that, though, the privacy settings are a common news story, aren't they, Andy?
Oh, yeah, goodness me. Yeah, it's been in the news so much in the last year, hasn't it? In fact, it's kind of turned me a little bit off Facebook, actually, for personal and professional use. Mainly because not so much the privacy, but also being seen as, you know, the person is the product. You know, if you're not paying any money for something like this, it's probably you that's the product, and people are paying to target you with advertising. Also, often see kind of poor quality health messages on there, or have done when I used to be there. One of my things, I don't know why someone was targeting me with this weight loss soup pill that your GP doesn't want to tell you about, and things like that. So I think they've probably tightened up now, but there were some weird health messages going on there. So I kind of got turned off the platform a little bit, but maybe you can persuade me to come back.
Okay, well, we'll have a look at that. So one of the key things is, like as Andy mentioned, it's about the person. So that's where the profile, your individual kind of thing comes into play. There are other ways that you can use Facebook. So there's the pages aspect of it. So this is the company kind of face. So for example, EGP Learning has a page, which you guys are welcome to have a look at. And that's where we publish a lot of the content that we have, as well as link into other kind of things like news articles, polls, that kind of stuff that you may want to look at as a kind of like a face of the EGP Learning itself. Because actually, as a company, you can't really have your own profile because you're not a person. But probably the biggest aspect is the groups. So I mentioned that doctors.net was the original kind of social media platform for doctors. I think Facebook has overtaken that, partly because of users. So the majority of people have a Facebook account. And secondly, because it just works so much better as a discussion forum in terms of people being able to interact and share information and discuss things and stuff. So in terms of that, there are a variety of groups that exist out there that can be really effective and stuff for people to use, both as an individual, but also as a clinician. And I think that's the focus of this particular session, is looking at how you as a clinician can get the most out of using social media and stuff. So we're going to have a little look at that. A couple of things you need to bear in mind with the groups themselves. Interaction, so it's important of how you interact with the groups. Looking at the resources, and we'll cover that in a second. Admissions and the rules. So most groups, particularly when it comes to clinical ones, are what we call closed groups. So in order to join, you have to request to apply. And when you do so, you'll be normally asked to answer a couple of questions just to confirm you are who you say you are, because there is this concept of trying to protect the group as a whole. Obviously, do remember, anything ever published on social media is public anyway. But it's an element of trying to just provide some elements of security and stuff.
Gandhi, I've got a question.
Yes,
because you've been involved in Facebook groups before, and we were having a conversation about Facebook groups in practice, and practice manager is quite kind of hot on information governance and so forth. And you said, well, So I said, well, when you joined that group, how did they know that it was you? I said, well, I think I told them my name. It was a while ago. I think I might have even said my GMC number so that they can check the public record to see if it's me. And she said, well, but they could get that information from the practice's website, and they could just pose as you, and they could get into this closed environment where GPs might talk about their jobs and might even talk about clinical cases. What's the feeling on that from within one of those groups potentially?
So I guess I'd just reference what I mentioned earlier about the fact that, don't forget, no matter whatever you publish is still public, and there is no system that could ever guarantee that someone is not who they say they are on the internet. And it's impossible. You can technically do anything to break it, even if you really wanted to, the government ID checks and that kind of stuff. There are ways you can get around that. If you just had somebody else's driving license, for example, you can get someone's government ID if you wanted to. But the key thing is bearing that in mind. The groups try their best to police themselves, and often if someone is posting of concern, then people may probe a little bit, say, are you who you say you are, kind of thing. And so it's never 100% safe. I think you need to bear that in mind when you use social media. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't still use it, I'd argue, but it's definitely consideration.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing against it. I just thought it was an interesting point. And I think you're right. We'll come to the social media rules later, won't we? But basically, consider, it's like standing on the street corner and shouting. Nowhere is private, I guess, is the message you're saying.
And effectively, the last one I wanted to kind of mention on this was, again, privacy aspects and stuff. So it's one of the things that Facebook is notorious for doing, is changing their privacy setting rules and that kind of stuff. So it is sensible on a regular basis going in and checking your privacy settings and make sure you're sharing what you want to share to whom you want to share it, kind of thing. So whilst definitely an advocate for using social media, there is always a message of caution on these kind of things, and that's definitely the big one for Facebook. So we mentioned groups. There are loads of groups out there. Loads. I'm not kidding. You couldn't count how many groups exist out there. And this is just a very small snapshot of some of the groups that exist at the moment. So slight declaration here. I actually significantly involved with 3 of these groups.
Yeah, there's a few on there that I recognise, Gandhi.
Yeah, so we've got eGP Learning over here, which is obviously my group that I kind of manage for eGP learners, where I try and support people in terms of technology-enhanced primary care and learning. Guys, you're more than welcome to join. I'm the admin for that, so if you get asked a question, it's from me. Second one I'll also mention that I also manage and run is something called the S1 FBUG, so it stands for System 1 Facebook User Group. There's a group of about 900 people at the moment, so fairly large in terms of what it does, and it's basically trying to support people using System 1, so the clinical health system that we use in general practice. That's one of the big 2 effectively. And trying to create an environment and a community for people to use the tools effectively and that kind of stuff. Completely unofficial, I'll point out. This is not an official System 1 group by any means, but a nice community. If you want some advice and stuff, more than happy to offer it and things. And the third one, although I'm not the owner of the group, I am an administrator, and that's GP Survival. So many of you know that I'm currently the treasurer of GP Survival at the time of this recording. And as a result of that, I'm an admin for the group, and a significant group trying to support GPs in terms of grassroots aspects, particularly against things like media spin, trying to make sure GPs get their kind of rights championed for. Clarify, GP Survival is not a union, so it can't do some of the things that the union, like the BMA, can do, but is definitely, from my view, at the very least, a helpful group to support you, how you're functioning as a GP. And some of our recent campaigns, particularly the stuff against capita, and particularly in terms of getting some GP locums their money from local companies when they weren't paid, real success stories and stuff. Have you heard of the other ones, Andy?
Well, I've heard of Resilient GP.
Okay.
And actually, an interesting question. So how would GP Survival differentiate itself from Resilient GP? I think that's an interesting question.
Sure. So I think GP Survival looks at itself more as the medico-political kind of Facebook group, trying to tackle a lot of the the media spin, that kind of stuff, as well as trying to championing the rights of GPs themselves. And we present that to the other kind of groups like the RCGP, like the BMA, like the GPC, that kind of stuff. So, kind of like a sounding board to feed that stuff higher up. Resilient GP is more clearly more like a support group designed to try and help GPs function, definitely, and more along the lines of things like workload and resilience and that kind of stuff and well-being, compared to, I think, the GP Survival being more about the medico-political side of things.
Okay, cool.
Interestingly, slight bit of history, both GP Survival and Resilient GP are offshoots of the other group that's mentioned on here.
So that must be the Tico's GP group.
Tico's GP group. So I would probably say Tico's GP group is the original GP Facebook group that existed, created by a colleague of ours, Carter Moda, probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, which he created after wanting a support group following finishing BTS. And it rapidly grew from just being a few GPs to about 6,500 GPs on there.
It's a fantastic story.
They have more things in terms of clinical case discussions. So if you wanted a group to discuss clinical stuff, a lot more of that happens on TICOs. Resilient GP and GP Survival don't allow those. So that's what I mentioned about things like the rules of groups and stuff. They don't allow those kind of discussions, whereas TICOs are more relaxed about discussing cases as long as it's in line with social media guidance and stuff. But yeah, definitely those three are probably the three most prominent GP orientated or primary care orientated groups around at this moment in time. The RCGP doesn't really have its own official group. So as our college, it does have various different offshoots, and particularly for local faculties, there's lots of various different groups and stuff. There is the Open RCGP group, which is created by one of its members to try and talk more about the college itself. So although there's no official Facebook group for the Royal College of General Practitioners, there's a lot of offshoots and stuff that people can look and explore and stuff.
Yeah, should they have one? Maybe viewers might have an opinion on that.
And interesting, if you want more information about other kind of groups that exist, in the show notes there'll be a link to an article that I've written just this week, in fact, that talks about the various different groups. So we've talked about a small selection here. There's a lot more discussed in the post and stuff. So if you've got other interests you want to look at, feel free to do so.
I've got another question, Gandhi, and then we must crack on with the slides. I'm aware of that. How does a group like GP Survival? So people talk about echo chambers with Facebook, don't they? People with like-minded ideas being in the same place, and they can kind of magnify their own ideas or anxieties about things. How does a group like GP Survival kind of achieve that or sort of address that risk and sort of try and not go down that route?
I think it's hard because inevitably a group will always be an echo chamber of the people that's in the group. And you see that with almost every single group. So what is the point in joining a group about knitting if you don't have an interest in similar, tackling things like workload and building their own resilience. That clearly is depending on what your view of resilience is, and that may be different from some people in the group. That may be different from all the people in the group. You need to pitch yourself where your kind of interests are, and that's why there's so many groups out there. That's the key thing. There isn't just one group, and it's worth catering for the needs that you want. So there may be like interests. So for example, there's groups for GP trainers, groups for partners, groups for sessional doctors.
GPs interested in technology, or doctors interested in technology, alternative careers for doctors. They're quite interesting ones too.
Or it may be just, different groups. For example, whilst Resilient GP is definitely there for resilience and supporting people, other groups like TN Empathy, which are felt to be more about the altruistic aspects of resilience and well-being and stuff, may be more the kind of thing you want to focus on because it's less of the workload stuff, more about the well-being and resilience and stuff. So it's finding the groups that you want. Echo chambers and stuff we'll discuss a little bit later.
Cool, let's keep rolling.
Cool. So we're going to go back to our next social media platform, and that is Twitter. So, Andy, do you know what Twitter is?
Yes.
Reading the slides.
I'm looking away, but Twitter is a microblogging website where you can express your views and opinions in characters of 100 alpha. No, they doubled it, didn't they? To 280 characters. 140 wasn't enough.
So, you're right. So, it used to be 140. Interesting. Do you know the reason why it was 140?
Text message. That's how many characters in a classic short SMS text message.
So guys, originally Twitter was designed as a mobile messaging platform, which then naturally segued into digital and data-based and things, but it kind of held true to its 140 characters for quite a while until recently it increased it to 280. So still trying to keep concise, and that's the key challenge with Twitter. It's using the platform because it is about being concise. So short messages, trying to broadcast effectively, and it is a broadcasting platform, very good for interactions and stuff. Just wanted to go through a quick bit of terminology for Twitter. So some of you may have heard of the term hashtag. As someone working in primary care, the best way I can explain a hashtag is it's a recode. So for example, if you put hashtag EGP Learning. You'll be able to tag anything with EGP Learning and then be able to search for that quickly and effectively through the Twitter platform. And the real benefit of that, you can create a hashtag for anything at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just important to remember that maybe that hashtag may already be existing. So, you know, if you want to create a hashtag, just be cautious.
Oh yeah, there must be some examples where things have gone wrong with that. Not spring to mind, but I'm sure there are.
Oh, we'll see. But we'll come back to hashtags in a bit. The term retweet. So effectively, when you join Twitter, you have your own kind of feed and stuff. And effectively, when you retweet something, you're taking something from somebody else's feed and bringing it onto yours for your followers to then be able to see. So you may have a number of followers, they only see what you tweet or you've retweeted, or the newer version is something called quote. So that's when you retweet it, so copy it over to yours, and then add a little bit extra on top to say that actually, you know, so this person's made a message about, for example, antibiotic resistance and why you shouldn't use antibiotics to treat everything. And then you've made a comment to enhance or denounce or whatever you want to do on top of that comment. And then that shows up on your feed for your followers to then be able to see. Make sense?
That makes sense to me, yeah. And I suppose retweets and favourites / likes are sort of the currency of Twitter, aren't they? You know,
yeah. So how effective, how many impressions a tweet will have is based on 3 things effectively. A, the number of followers you have, because automatically you share everything you tweet to your followers. A retweet is then obviously gives you more currency in the sense of the impressions that you've had and also the person you've retweeted it from. And a like is just a slightly different way of retweeting, but not necessarily copying it over to your platform. That's the difference. So like basically says I like it, but I'm not bringing that over to my feed.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then the newer kind of tool that they brought in is bookmarking. So that's slightly separate, and it's not as easy to do as like or retweet, so as favoriting or retweeting, but you can save certain tweets as a bookmark that you can then search for yourself to have a look at. And clearly that can have real applications in terms of looking for CPD content and stuff. So articles you come across, you can bookmark, and then when it comes time to you wanting to update your appraisal documentation stuff, just search through the bookmarks that you've come across at that time. There you go.
That's not something I'm using, but maybe I will now.
Worth having a look. And then finally, the other way of messaging on Twitter is what's called the DM, the direct message. So this is basically a personal message sent from one user to another that no one else can see.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've got it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we just go back to those. There we go. We'll get this slicker, I'm sure, at some point, guys. So yeah, this is Twitter then.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice little bit of levity and stuff. But yeah.
Cool.
So quick little question for you, Andy.
Okay.
So guys, Andy hasn't had a look at these already. So we've got 6 different entities, effectively, up there. So Helen Stokes-Lampard, our current chair of the RCGP. So Ian McKellen, aka Gandalf. I guess you guys can wonder why I picked him. Yeah. The BMA organisation itself, London-wide LMC. Jeremy Hunt, our former Secretary of Health, and Dr. Gandalf, aka me. So rank in order.
In order. Okay, right. So I'm going to get Ian McKellen first because I think Twitter is quite a celebrity-driven platform, and he's the most celebrity of those people. So let's put him top.
Okay.
People like politics on Twitter. So I'm going to put Jeremy Hunt. Well, BMA's a big organisation though, but actually I'm going to put Jeremy Hunt second.
Okay.
So it's BMA or Helen. Gandhi, I'm putting you last, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So BMA or Helen Stokes-Lampard, and interesting. So would Helen Stokes-Lampard have more followers than even the RCGP? She probably would. So maybe she's got more than the BMA. So I'm going to go Helen Stokes-Lampard. No, BMA's for all doctors. I'm going to go Helen Stokes-Lampard, BMA, and then yourself.
Okay. London-wide LMC?
Oh, a little bit more than you. Okay. So London LMC, then you, but maybe not.
Okay, fair enough.
London's a big place.
So guys, I'm just going to give you guys that are watching a quick second to have a think and see whether or not you agree or disagree with Andy. So give you a couple of seconds just to say yes or no. Do you think Andy's got them right or not? And we do have a slight lag, so we're just going to have to give it a short second and things. But interesting. I love the fact that you put me last, Andy.
Yeah, maybe you're not last. I don't know.
Fair enough.
But you know, like I'm here with you. You couldn't possibly have more followers than these other people. Like I actually know you.
Oh,
well, let's see.
What do you think, Andy? Any comments?
No, nothing come through. There are people watching, but they are not commenting. Maybe maybe they're random Russians. We don't know.
Or maybe they just wanted to see and not engage. But that's fine, guys. Anyway, so Andy, you're about 50% right.
Okay.
Okay, so you're definitely right about Ian McKellen. Gandalf is awesome and clearly has several million followers. So yeah, he's miles above the rest, to say the least. If we then go to the other one, so next up, you're right, politics is normally a common denominator for people being successful on Twitter, and yeah, Jeremy Hunt definitely number 2. I think he's about 1 million followers or so, if I remember rightly. Next up, organizations tend to do pretty well, and particularly multi-arch organizations. The BMA is number 3, closely followed by Helen Stokes-Lampard, our chair of the RCGP. Interestingly, our former chair of the RCGP, Claire Gerarda, probably beats both of them combined.
Interesting.
So, and I guess the reason why I mention this is Claire Gerarda is probably the most impactful chair at getting people onto Twitter. So she was the chair of the college at the time that Twitter exploded onto the scene. Her use of Twitter was legendary. She would churn about 5 or 6 tweets just within one meeting. So clearly very huge following that she has as a result of it. And our subsequent chairs, unfortunately, haven't got up to her. I think it's 40,000 plus followers, if I remember rightly. But yeah, we know, time will tell.
Interesting.
Next up is me. Actually, I'm not last.
Congratulations.
Yes. So yeah, I am much lower down than all these people. I'm approximately 2,800 followers, if I remember rightly.
Okay. Yeah.
And then London Wide LMC shortly following. I think that I honestly can't remember.
Good.
But yeah.
Gandhi, I'm going to give you a time check. We are 36 minutes past the hour.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to have to rush through these things then, guys. Apologies. Having too much fun. So there we go.
Give us the highlights. I think the discussion points are good.
Yeah.
But let's focus.
So effectively, Twitter is an engagement platform, and it's about having the dialogue and the debate and being able to talk to people. It is very much a broadcasting platform as well, so being able to send out a message that you have and things. And the key thing that I think to remember is that when you talk to people, you're talking to people on the same level kind of thing. Yes, you may have the Twitterati, they're up in the echelons of millions and millions of followers that are probably unlikely to respond to you if you message them, but you never know, sometimes it can be it's great for sharing ideas with our leaders, with people around us and that kind of stuff, and seeing what's going on. It's great as a news feed in that respect, and it's free. And the reason why I put them in question marks or exclamation marks really is because it is free, monetary to use, but it does cost you time. Always something to bear in mind. Social media will always cost you time. If you're ever interested in looking at who to follow, so I've curated a list of members on Twitter that I tend to recommend as kind of like the primary care kind of voices to have a look at and stuff. So feel free to check that out. The notes are in the show links and stuff. Then the question is, why would you want to use Twitter? Well, it's made social change. There is no question on that. I think Twitter has made a huge impact in kind of the social movements, things like the Arab Spring and that kind of stuff that happened a few years ago. The junior doctor movement a few years ago was massively mobilized because of Twitter itself. It made a huge impact. And more personally, in terms of Hello, My Name Is, so this was a movement created by Dr. Kate. And I apologise, the name's gone from my head at this moment in time.
I can't remember either, but I remember it was quite a lot on Facebook as well, wasn't it?
And she created this whole campaign about introducing yourself as a doctor, that Hello, My Name Is, during her journey through tackling cancer and stuff. And it was really impactful, and actually was a national movement that got taken up by many working within the profession. You can follow events. So RCGP annual conference takes place every October-ish, and if you aren't able to attend because it may be too far, like in Glasgow, or you're not able to get away from practice because it's your son's birthday, for example, you can tell I'm not at all commenting on myself here. Be a great way of interacting with events that are happening nationally and stuff for whatever reason. And similarly, learning. PhoneMed, free online access to medicine education, I think is what it stands for. Again, an international movement trying to share medical information to try and improve practice and stuff. You can join communities. So We Communities is a group of various different subsets of medical professionals. So We GPs, We pharmacists, We nurses. It's got its own website. Link is in the show notes.
I didn't know about that. Okay.
And useful getting in contact with particular communities. So a lot of the pharmacy kind of challenges we've been having lately, I've been speaking a lot with the We Pharmacists community and stuff and getting feedback from that. One of the more interesting uses of Twitter, so there's the GP Journal Club you can join and stuff and have a look at to partake in a journal club every month.
Is that Jamie from Birmingham?
I think he's involved. He did one of the more recent ones. I don't
Okay.
think he actually runs it officially, but he took over it for a brief period of time. So hi, Jamie. Hope you're all right.
Hi there. At Artful Doctor on Twitter.
And lastly, it's probably the 21st century version of news feeds and stuff. But be cautious of fake news. Obviously, this is the big thing at the moment. How can you trust the news source that you've got when it can come up so rapidly? We talked about people being who they may or may not be. It's great for a moan. It's great for getting some fun stuff as well. I love following Marvel and getting the updates of the new trailers for all the films and stuff.
So, Gandhi, Facebook or Twitter, what's your favourite?
They're different.
They're different. Okay. But what's your favourite?
I love them both.
Okay.
Sorry, not about that.
See, I find I prefer Twitter because there's something about, and it's probably not right, but there's something feels a bit purer about it in terms of I know who people are. Well, people may not be that, but I know people are who they claim to be, and you see what they're saying. You don't see much else. It's fairly easy to see the sponsored tweets. It kind of just feels like a purer, less messed with experience than Facebook.
I mean, Twitter does have its own verification process ingrained in it, so that when you get to a particular size of followers and that kind of stuff, so Twitter can potentially verify you are who you say you are.
The blue tick.
Yeah, the little blue tick and stuff. Guys, just a quick reminder, we are live. If you want to, so I'm Gandhi and this is Andy, and we're talking to you about social media guidance for clinicians. If you want to follow our other sessions, there's the links for you. Feel free to check them out. I'm going to move on. So briefly talking about LinkedIn. So this is what we would talk about as the professional social network, as described that. Ideally suited for if you're looking for jobs or if you want to get your CV out there. And interestingly, in Nottingham, we've been having a few sessions purely focusing around this, provided by the Nottingham LMC, about trying to improve your CV and stuff and using LinkedIn as a tool to do that. It is a really interesting platform. I think particularly it's growing rapidly and probably one of the quickest growing platforms at this moment in time, and particularly for professionals like ourselves, really effective and useful.
And I would say I find the LinkedIn feed, the LinkedIn news feed it feels like the most relevant information for me professionally. The Facebook feed is full of rubbish. Twitter, you really have to try hard to work through your feed and create lists and things. LinkedIn, there's always something interesting there. So they do a good job of that.
Yeah, I think their algorithm is something that's different to all the others because it is more personal and it is definitely with that professional focus. You're not going to have, well, you're less likely to have cat videos and that kind of stuff on LinkedIn than you are on Facebook and Twitter and stuff. LinkedIn does have its own group section. I'll be honest, it's probably not as developed as Facebook and it's not as easy to use, I find, compared to the Facebook ones. But there is a group section and potentially something that could be developed in the future. YouTube. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. That's just saying something on its own. And you guys are watching us on YouTube, so hi, kind of thing. But it's a great way of getting information. So great and free way to learn. So, our eGP learning platform provides lots of useful information that hopefully you find effective and things. Aurora Bytes by Aman Aurora is a really useful.
Hi, Aman.
Yeah, hi. Aman. How you doing?
We've interviewed you before. Hi there.
But effectively, we find this, I find it a really good way of getting mini updates of clinical information if you're sorting up for a particular test.
I find it a bit like, in the Matrix, where you're like, okay, I need to download how to fly a helicopter.
Yeah.
So you're in the clinic and you think, you know what, I need to re-download how to inject somebody's carpal tunnel. And you kind of bring it up and it feels a little bit like the Matrix to me. You can kind of just update that knowledge in your head, 5-minute video. It's really, really powerful. Fantastic.
So you got onto the next point. It's a great way of picking up skills. So Dix-Hallpike test, Epley's, something that people say you can potentially do in primary care if you wanted to and that kind of stuff. You can learn it on it. I learned how to do it via YouTube. I didn't learn it from somebody else. I watched somebody else do it on YouTube. And every time, initially when I was unsure how to do it, I just went and watched a YouTube video how to refresh my memory. It works, and I do it effectively now. But you do have to be careful not to get addicted. You can go down the rabbit hole with YouTube, I'm afraid. So start watching one video, and 2 hours later, you're realizing you're still watching videos. Yeah,
it's interesting, and you can get into it's very niche, isn't it? You can get into really niche things. I've got into looking at medieval weapons randomly, which is strange. Anything you've got into, Gandhi? That's really random. Probably board games.
Yeah, board games definitely. Yeah, board games and Dragon Ball Z.
Okay.
Yeah. Social networking. You can't talk about any form of social media without talking about WhatsApp. So probably the largest user base across the world. I think it even pips Facebook, actually. But it's more of a networking platform. And they brought a lot of function lately that's been really effective. So managing groups and that kind of stuff. And as a result of that, one of the reasons why I mentioned this one in particular is using it as a practice to coordinate people within your own practice can be a really effective tool. So in our practice, we use it as we've got a partners group, for example, we've got a practice group, we've got all these different aspects that we can use to help.
Do you have a group that includes all the kind of reception and admin staff as well? Have you gone that far?
Not yet. I think that's something we can look at, but our staff have kind of said they didn't want to go down that route just yet. And there is this whole concept of being switched on all the time, which you need to balance with using social media. And I think that's a fair enough line that people don't want to cross.
Because we've got a senior management team group, and it's great. But sometimes people, they're active at funny times. And so that's being switched on all the time thing is a real risk, I think, with work-related WhatsApp groups.
Definitely. But I think WhatsApp is definitely changing the way that people communicate, like you said. Being able to see when people have seen your messages is sometimes an interesting thing. And it's definitely replacing the text message in terms of form of communication. I think some of the new functionality in terms of administering groups and stuff can be really powerful and effective.
Yeah.
But I think, other platforms may catch up. So Slack in particular, I think is probably the platform to watch for this kind of use in terms of practice use and that kind of thing. Right, guys, let's crack on, shall we?
There are 15 minutes left, probably realistically 10 minutes.
Okay, fine. That's great. So in terms of using social media for your education and stuff, first thing I would say is engage. One of my quick little tips is creating your own hashtag. So I mentioned this earlier, that you can create a hashtag for anything. So why not create your own individual hashtag that you can code onto a tweet that you've retweeted? Say, for example, if you come across how to inject joints quickly and effectively, or if you come across an app by a review, say by HTN Learning, that you thought was really useful and you wanted to keep in the back of your mind, stick your own little hashtag on that as a retweet. And then when it comes time for you to updating your portfolio, you can search for it. Or you can create that as a group that you can share between you. So it could be something like hashtag HG 2019 CPD. Done. Yeah. Good. Effectively. You can now bookmark things. So that potentially may be an easier way to do it for your own personal use. That's a newer function that's just come into play. And you can use all these kind of things to reflect on your learning because you're creating that repository of stuff. I'll go into this in more detail in our other webinar that you guys can watch. So EGP Learning bit/EGP that's coming up for you guys in about 15 minutes if you're watching us live. If not, check it out on the feed and stuff. Cool. But if we're talking about social media, I think we need to look at how we use this professionally. And there is guidance out there how to use social media. So about 4 or 5 years ago, all the organizations that support and monitor us and all that kind of stuff came out with their own individual guidance. So we've got stuff from the GMC, the RCGP, and the BMA. Feel free to have a look at them. The links will be in the show notes to the individual guidances. If you're looking for the easiest to read, I'd probably say, well, the quickest one is the BMA. It's the shortest, only page long. But if you were looking for one that's a good balance, I would actually say the RCGP guidance is a sensible, clear kind of guidance if you wanted to look at it. Or have a look at mine. So this is effectively... Fire away. Yeah, so I've called it SCRIBE. Okay, so SCRIBE is effectively a 6-point thing when you're using social media for how to use it sensibly. So share, so make sure you do use it to share things. You share your knowledge, share the fun things, but also be careful about what you're sharing. So making sure that you're checking things like your personal information. Is that stuff you want to share? Facebook ran a campaign about 6 months ago, I think it was, about being cautious what you're actually sharing, because people could get your personal information very quickly and rapidly just from things like some of the pictures you've posted that has your information, your address accidentally because of your photos.
It's things in the background, isn't it? Like the stuff on my notice board, for example. Fortunately, the resolution of the camera's not good enough, but good cameras on some things.
Cool. Confidentiality. Okay. As a clinician, it's important to be completely aware of confidentiality, particularly on social media. So if you're talking about patients, whilst you may change some of the details and stuff, is that enough to make sure that you're being confidential about how you're talking about a patient? Information you're sharing about practice, within the practice itself, when you're talking sensibly. A lot of practices now have their own Facebook pages, groups, Twitter accounts, that kind of stuff.
A lot of them have their own information, have their own social media policies as well. So it's important to make sure you're within your professional organization's policies, but also within your employer's policies as well. Just to say definitely people can't fall foul of that.
And also within the groups themselves. So a lot of the Facebook groups that we talked about have rules about sharing outside of the groups to try and protect the groups. And if you breach them, you're probably likely to find yourself booted quite quickly and effectively. Respect. Make sure you respect other people when you're using social media. It's the quickest way to fall foul of something is to start being a little bit belligerent and not remembering the fact that you are talking to individuals. It may be easy because you're behind a screen, but do remember that. But also respect yourself. A lot of people will sometimes forget that they are professionals and make posts that maybe seem entertaining or that kind of stuff. But don't forget the public is watching you effectively. And don't forget the rules as well, respect them. So we talked about group rules and that kind of stuff, and always something to be mindful of. And also if you're, representing other kind of organizations and stuff, they may have rules about you using social media. Identity. So make sure you maintain your own identity. There's no point using social media because it's about, showing yourself in a sense. So be yourself. Yeah.
I think it's part of the guidelines as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Professionally, you should be identifiable as yourself, I think.
Yeah,
somewhere.
So technically, if you follow the GMC guidance, it does state that you should put your GMC number on your social media platforms, for example. I'd argue that you're easily searchable if you use your full name and stuff, so fair enough, that can be, I think, something to consider.
I've never seen anybody doing that.
I've seen a few, not many though. Yeah. No. And in terms of identity, always privacy. Check those privacy guidances and rules and regulations and stuff. Boundaries. Remember your roles. So I'm a guy with lots of roles. You're a guy with lots of roles. What I say may not reflect those particular roles, but be mindful of that. When you're making comments on social media and stuff, and also the boundary between your personal and professional life, how that may play into it, and also making sure you keep yourself safe on social media. There can be some nasty occurrences out there, and we'll cover that in a second. And lastly, engage. The great thing about social media, it is an engagement tool. Can allow you to network, can allow you to support people or be supported, and actually challenging inappropriate health information. You mentioned about the 50 people that lose your weight. Do we have some responsibility as professionals and healthcare professionals to try and challenge inaccurate information and stuff?
It's true. And do the platforms have a responsibility for policing themselves? Who knows?
So,
I'm going to say some of the goodness me, off to infinity.
Sorry, guys.
To infinity and beyond. Some of the best social media guidelines that I had was, I think, RCGP Annual Conference 2013 or something like that. Claire Gerarda, the RCGP were launching their guidelines, and Claire Gerarda did social media guidelines for GPs in 140 characters, and it was something along the lines of be yourself, respect yourself, your profession, and your patients. The world is watching. Everyone, everywhere, and forever. Have fun. which was very good.
Definitely. I thought. Great advice. Again, guys, it's our live session. So I'm Gandhi.
I'm Andy. Hello.
And feel free to join our further sessions, which will be coming up in a few minutes for you guys. So just general points to consider. I'll rapidly go through these. There's more information in the show notes and stuff. But when you're giving medical advice on social media, it's something that is cautioned against because you have to be careful about who you're giving that advice to. If you do ever get direct medical questions, I would always recommend trying to take those off social media themselves. There are some people that would say that you can give that advice, but a lot of the guidance is quite clear about how you should do that and what you should sensibly do and stuff. Tone is probably the biggest thing that many people fall foul of on social media because it's so hard sometimes to convey tone, particularly on things like Twitter when you're limited to how many characters you can say. And it's easy to lose tone and then to end up down a rabbit hole in terms of discussions and arguments and frustration and all that kind of stuff. So, if you're saying something lightheartedly, make sure you make that clear. Then also don't forget that some people may not get the tone of that comment and be mindful of that kind of concept.
Yeah, I find emojis can help.
Sometimes
if you can learn to speak emoji, it's helpful. It's not the entire answer though, and you can run into problems with emojis too.
Groupthink is definitely something that you need to be cautious of and things. And we briefly talked about that earlier. Trolls, unfortunately, they exist and they can develop themselves into things like bullying, cyber stalking, that kind of stuff. These are realities of using social media and stuff. Some people would always say never read the comments because you might not want to see what people have written because there are obviously various different views out there. I challenge anyone to read a discussion about Brexit and not see the very polar views on that kind of stuff. Check what you're sharing and should you. So this relates to when you share links and that kind of stuff. Sometimes you may share a link purely based on the headline, but don't forget the article may be a completely different viewpoint and stuff. So always be aware of that. and also how effective are you as a person when you're sharing. So you may be trying to share a really important message, but if you've only got 10 followers, realistically speaking, is that going to get to a lot of people? And vice versa, if you've got millions of followers and you make a point that you may not want to be as clear about, for example, that can have impact on who it affects and that kind of stuff. Multi-apps. So there are lots of apps out there to try and help you use social media more effectively. We've listed 3 of them out there, and particularly for Twitter, TweetDeck's really good if you've got multiple accounts and that kind of stuff. Buffers if you're using lots of different platforms, and so is Loomly, which I use personally.
I'll check out that. I use Buffer, so I'll check out Loomly.
Cool. So takeaway tips. We're finishing off, guys. First and foremost, sign up and engage. This is definitely my big thing that I would say to anybody who's wanting to use social media. Actually do use it. There's lots of good reasons potentially not to, and people may feel apprehensive about it, but I would still say it's better to use social media than not to, because there's such of the benefits that we've discussed already. Follow your interest. That's the key thing. It's there for you to find the things that interest you and then feed onto that. And you can sometimes enter an echo chamber of just following your interests, but actually sometimes having that healthy challenge from other people in terms of
follow people who have a different point of view. A lot of people advocate having a few people in there who have the opposite point of view, just so you can be exposed to the other side of an argument.
So for example, I follow Jeremy Hunt. I generally do not agree with anything the man says, but actually what he says can have a huge impact, or did, particularly when it's health, especially for health of state and stuff, and can be impactful on things. Always check your profiles, your privacy, and your data. Make sure it's something you check on a regular basis. So on pretty much every 6 months, I'll go through all my accounts and just check that they're okay. Make sure you follow some sort of guidance. Feel free to follow the SCRIBE guidance, and so that article will be out shortly for you guys if you want to have a look on the EGP Learning platform. Don't be stupid. May sound simple, but don't. And have fun.
So, Gandhi, we're about to wrap up.
Yeah.
What's your most powerful, what has social media done for your life in the past? Social media seems to have made a big impact.
Definitely. So in terms of the platform and stuff that I run, clearly it has a lot of impact and things of what we do. I think in terms of making sure that using it effectively and sensibly is a huge part of it. I've made loads of contacts and networking through social media that has
I'd agree with
really
that.
helped me. And sometimes it can have such a profound impact. The one I would like to point out, we've got a fellow colleague that's been trying to get a meeting, one of the heads of the ICSs, and it took him 3 weeks to get a phone call with that one particular person because he went through the normal channels. I got the same phone call within 48 hours just by tweeting them.
There we go.
So
it's powerful.
A huge impact.
Individual, probably their attention was on what's happening in social media because that's relevant. The thing I like about social media, and this is more not social media, Twitter in particular, more generally, and I'm going to sound like a survivalist, like I should be in a bunker with a shotgun here, but it's really nice being able to get straight to the people who are saying the actual thing. So you mentioned like Jeremy Hunt, for example, like him or not, you can see what he is actually saying, not what the news saying or what other people saying. And sometimes people will link to original videos of events that you can watch, and so you can actually get straight to the news and cut out the mainstream media and all of that, which is, I think, a useful an interesting social development that has never happened before.
Cool. So we asked this question earlier, where are you in terms of using social media as a clinician? I'm hoping that throughout the course of this session, some of you moved slightly up the ladder towards potentially being more tech curious or tech happy. And if you've got any questions, feel free to ask us, guys, because both me and Andy are here to answer those kind of questions. Ask us on YouTube, or feel free to contact us both on Twitter or Facebook.
Fantastic.
So on Twitter, I'm at Dr. Gandalf 52.
And I'm at Dr. A.W. Foster or Dr. Draw Foster.
Okay.
Cool.
And lastly, if you do want your certificate for this particular thing, so we offer a certificate, CPD certificate of engagement. You just need to sign up on the web link that you can see there. So bit.ly, that's ly/EGP Learning HTN Cert. If you are watching this as part of the HTN Digital Week live, then you will get that email directly from HTN with the certificate. But if you're watching this separately to that, just go to that website, guys, sign up, and then we'll send you a certificate, and you get that a couple of days down the line and stuff. And if you want to, feel free to watch our next session. So the EGP Learning HTN CPD session that we're doing on technology to enhance the CPD collection, or watch our previous one about our top 5 GPMs.
Cool. So we'll catch you then.
See you later, guys.
See you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.